Rafe, I'm finding this, that, you know, a village in Norfolk, outside the village hall, it's amazing that this is actually even causing a flutter.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very depressing story. I mean, there's nothing more English than the Cross of St. George flying from a country church or a Union flag flying from a village hall. It's, you know, it's as English as cricket and warm beer. And I don't really think it's that divisive in this village. I think what probably is the case is, as usual, there's a vocal minority, a few people who are trying to stoke division here. The Union flag should instill pride in all of us. We know from polling it's one of the world's best-loved flags. It still adorns more than 20 flags around the world. And, you know, in 2019, Hong Kong pro-democracy protesters waved the Union flag as a symbol of freedom and democracy. You know, in the Second World War, 1940 to 1941, it was only the Union flag that was the only symbol of freedom and hope for the oppressed peoples of Europe surviving under the Nazi jackboot. And I think it's an insult to the millions of black, brown and white soldiers who fought and died under the Union flag in 2 world wars.
And I immediately get it. It's supposed to be a symbol of unification for Northern Ireland, for Scotland, for England and Wales. I would, though, say to you...
You said English, and it's British. Thank you, Amy. Sorry to interrupt.
It's a village hall in England we're talking about.
No, we're talking about the flag. We're talking about the flag. Sorry to interrupt. Please continue. But it's British in terms of exactly what you said.
I'm totally aware of that. It represents Scotland, Northern Ireland, England...
But he said England.
...and Wales.
Right, so he said England, so in...
But it does represent them. Sorry, just make this... I've just got a point to make.
You need to represent everyone's...
You'll have your moment in a second, thanks.
No problem, no problem.
That I was brought up in a country whereby it is extremely sensitive and extremely divisive because of how they perceive themselves, either to be Irish or British.
Thank you. That's my point.
Northern Ireland is a special case, but what we're talking about here is Norfolk, which is as far as you can get from Northern Ireland. And, you know, there was a time when if you had this discussion in a parish council meeting and criticised the flag, you'd have been laughed off as a crank or some sort of deluded nut job, quite rightly. And the fact that the parish council is even having this discussion shows you the degree to which Britain and the British people have been demoralised, have been destabilised, have been, you know, undermined and attacked by this radical progressive elite that have captured our institutions and who absolutely loathe Britain and the West.
Let's bring in Imran now. And
Imarn.
Thank
you, Ayton.
Sorry, my eyesight's not what it used to be. Imarn, so are you a crank and a nut job? Do you see yourself as one of them?
What did you say? I'm a crank and a... What did you say?
No,
sorry.
we were talking about...
Okay, I was like, Ayton.
You could be seen as a crank and a nut job. So I'm just wondering,
very true.
How cranky or how much of a nut job do you see yourself as?
Well, I'm a centrist, so I would actually argue that. Don't do that. Don't even laugh. I'm being very honest right now. You may not feel that way, Rafe, but it is the truth. That's your perception, right? But the reality, in terms of an objective truth, in terms of the way that I govern myself, I'm actually a centrist, so not quite a what was it?
A crank and a nut job.
And a nut job. No, not particularly. But I will say one thing. I appreciate your sentiment and I appreciate your mini soliloquy, Rafe. But may I just finish? You ultimately started your argument by basically not using inclusive language and forget black people. Forget black people. I know that annoys you.
It's Norfolk.
No, hold on. It's Norfolk, yes. But you still forgot about the fact that we're talking about a British flag, not an English flag, and there is a difference, sir. So when you talk about England, you are actually taking away... This is why Ayton gave you
You didn't get the point.
Hold on a second. It's because you didn't include Ireland and Scotland. Just so you know, Irish, in terms of indentured servants, they were used to kind of explore the different techniques for colonialism and slavery, just so you know, in Africa. So when you come along and you say English flag and English pride, well, you are kind of ignoring the Irish and Scottish, just so you know. So you might want to lead with...
I never said English
first
flag.
And foremost. So that's why I'm not a crank and what was it? A nut job. Thank you, Ayton. Because I listen and I hear when you go correct with your prejudice and bias, sir.
But you were born in England.
I was. King's College Hospital.
So you don't feel any association with this flag, do you?
Oh, no, I do. Thank you. That's a very good question. So when we think about the Union flag, it represents so many different countries around the world, purely because of the British Empire. As you know, in Africa, they colonised at their heights and during their reign 50 countries in Africa. So there are a lot of black people that actually see themselves in the Union flag. And what's unfortunate is that we've had all of these riots recently. and they keep going on about how British they are. That's the truth. I used to think prejudice, racism, Islamophobia, bigotry, Union Jack. Now, because of the riots, because of the far-right individuals, now my black female self from King's College London, who was born here in England, now associates Britishness with, obviously, the Union flag and, of course, now the far-right.
I think we need to understand what's happening here and call it out, because we're getting these sorts of stories every single day in one form or another. This is ideological subversion. What we're seeing now is an attempt to create a topsy-turvy world, essentially. And it's right out of the communist playbook to question every single thing that we want.
There,
well, let me finish, please.
I will, but you don't go there with communism.
To question every single thing that we once held dear, to denigrate our past, denigrate our culture, denigrate our history, even denigrate the very notion of the nation-state. And what, of course, is the symbol of the nation-state? It's the flag. We need to call this out, recognise it for what it is, and we need to resist it while we still can. That means a robust promotion of British history, British pride, and British symbols.
Are you having these conversations
a union
with the far right,
a union flag in every single.
Right?
1 second, my dear. A union flag in every single school. Portrait of the King. We need to have a proactive defence of what we have while we still can, and before we lose it.
What do you think the Union Jack symbolises to you? Because Imarn's saying there that it's been hijacked by the far right.
And the Union Jack
now, that's what she sees.
It hasn't been hijacked by the far right. I mean, when you see black and brown and white athletes at the Olympic Games draped in the Union flag, when you see the way that, you know, Hong Kong pro-democracy protesters see it as a great symbol of freedom, and I think it's, you know, in the 19th century, for heaven's sake, remember, it was Royal Navy ships flying the Union-jacked white ensign that abolished the slave trade and went into Africa and Asia to abolish abhorrent practices. I see the Union flag as a great symbol of all that is great about the British spirit.
So I would just say that I appreciate that. I know you very well. We've done many segments before, and I appreciate the fact that you are very much centred around your self-esteem and ego, and who you are is connected to the British Empire. And the
Thank
British
you,
Empire,
Sigmund Freud.
OK, well, the British Empire is connected to murder, slavery, rape, exploitation. And I know these words feel uncomfortable, but it is the truth. And so I appreciate that you feel the way that you do, sir. With all due respect, Rafe, I like you. I'll be honest, I like you. So I won't negate what you are saying. But I do need you to include something else, which is the fact that the far right, first and foremost, have hijacked the Union Jack, which was first, all centred around Islamophobia, racism, bigotry. Then, because of these recent riots, Ellie, they moved on to the Union flag. Now, for me as a black person, I was just wedded to the Union Jack. But now I've added the Union flag. So now, when I think of Britain, British, I'm now, because of the far right and the riots that have taken place recently, I'm now not just thinking about the Union Jack, which is Islamophobia, bigotry, and just unintelligent people that don't realise they are being used by people that are at the hierarchy in terms of classism. But now I'm adding that with the Union flag.
That's changed for you in the last few weeks.
Yeah, I'll be honest, Ellie, it has. It has. And
the Union flag doesn't belong to any group. It belongs to it belongs to the British people, and the British people don't associate it with the far right.
Who's got the loudest voice? Who's got the loudest voice?
Well, right now you do.
You're right. So not right now in this context. Right now I have the loudest voice. You're perfectly right. But just in the scheme of things in terms of protests and riots, who has the loudest voice? It was BLM, like 4 years ago, but right now, it's far right.
Don't conflate the far right with the working class of this country. The reasons people were protesting were not because of far right. They feel dispossessed, they feel that they're losing their country and their neighbourhoods, all right? And the idea that you can slur millions of people in this country who love the Union flag, who do not associate as being far right, and who are deeply disturbed by what they see happening in this country.
Yes, in terms of immigration policy, which is due to the right government.
Thank you very much indeed. We've got to leave it there.
Sorry.
Thank you. We're out of time. Thank you, Imarn, and thank you very much indeed, Rafe.